Okay, here we go. Thanks for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Sorry, as always, to be very inconsistent with my posting. I guess, to be honest, a lot of it is that I don't really ever want to come on and be a big downer because I do tend to be a worrier. Um, and there's been, I guess, a lot to worry about lately. But yet, then I also have to remind myself that in, day to day, that I'm okay. The people I love are okay. And I guess we really do have to embrace that living in the now. And it is really true. Worrying about the future doesn't really do any good because everything always turns out differently than you expect anyway. So we worry about things that are probably not even going to happen. But that's easier said than done. So I gotta be honest in saying that yeah, I do. I have a lot of concerns on an ongoing basis, but yet I've been trying to. I'm working on making myself appreciate things and good things in each day. Even just waking up in comfort in a comfortable bed. Reminds me of what my one neighbor John told me years ago. Um, he's older than me. I must have been complaining about something, and um, he said, if you're not in a war and you're not in jail, you're doing pretty good. And that's real basics, but I think he's onto something there. So keeping that in mind, I'm trying. So anyway, today I'm gonna tell you about some new dreams. Definitely on the cosmic front. Uh, so strange, and I'll probably ramble a bit about the politics, a bit, not too much. Again, don't want to dwell on the negative. Let me start. I don't have an order for how I'm going to talk about things as usual, so pardon my jumping around. One thing that struck me yesterday, I was watching bits from the press conference in the Oval Office with Felon 47 and Mellon. You know, you know who I'm talking about. It's kind of similar to his actual name. And when I noticed, like when you see photographs, it doesn't capture it because you see them and you just you want to barf. But in the photos, they might seem confident or have some kind of presence or power. But watching the video in particular and the answers to the questions and seeing the reporters in the room from this one angle, I was just thinking about how really, really weak they were, how kind of sad and pathetic they were. And, Mellon is staring all over the room and his eyes are practically rolling back in his head like he's high on drugs or high on Mars. And I just thought, these guys are clowns and we can't, we can't give up working against, their agenda and working for the better agenda that is more benevolent to the country as a whole. What they're selling is, especially with this tax bill, which I really hope does not pass the Senate, but it probably will. But I hope it passes, in some alternate form. It is totally obvious. Like the short version of the bill is that they are taking away benefits from the lower 50% of the country, and they are giving that money directly to the 0.00001% wealthiest people because they fundamentally don't believe in a social contract or really society. They somehow think that if you have enough money, you can live completely off grid, like independent of the shared resources that make up a nation. That's why they're building their bunkers and this and that, and they have their walled fortresses. But when you live like that, you see everyone as a potential enemy, everyone as a potential threat. You don't have any real friends. You're ignoring the fact that if, God forbid, and I don't think this will happen, if society collapses, how are you going to run your generator on your property? Like, if no one's producing gas anymore, or gas becomes scarce, what do they think? They're going to have their own, natural gas, refineries, or generate, their own electricity for the next 50 years of life on a barren planet. Like, you can't. It's like the movie Doctor Strangelove, if you ever saw it. It's a Kubrick movie, where these elites decide they're going to try to like survive a nuclear apocalypse by living in a bunker underground, and it's farcical, and that's what's going on. Is farcical. But really, the point I wanted to make is they just don't believe in. They don't believe in a social safety net. They don't believe in helping other people. Now, on the flip side of that, there is truth to the fact that, like, there are some people who, receive government support, government cheese, and really probably could work, and are kind of like only surviving because the safety net doesn't have them falling through to the bottom. In Buffalo, we have some homelessness, not as much as some cities because it's so cold. Homelessness is not a very good lifestyle in a cold city. I mean, it's not a good lifestyle in any city, but especially here. And you recognize that a lot of these people are clearly mentally ill too. And so it goes back to even the Reagan years of, like, turning people out from mental facilities that should be in mental institutions, probably, instead of on the street. Some of them, not all of them. And that again goes back to, like, this mentality where, well, we don't want to pay for people to be in mental hospitals. We don't want our tax dollars to go towards this. So, but then the problem just becomes the problem just gets passed on to the police instead, and then the people who live in neighborhoods that have a lot of homelessness. So it's like pushing the problem somewhere else, like out of your own backyard into somebody else's backyard. And it's not a solution. So yes, sure, some people milk the system to get benefits that when they could be working, but a whole heck of a lot of people really need assistance, and it's so much better to get someone basic care when they have a small problem before it becomes a big problem that is, a catastrophic illness that also becomes a massively expensive catastrophic illness that either ruins them or, hurts the medical provider because they can't get paid. I don't know. That's not exactly where I intended to go, but mostly just to point out how short-sighted the Republican agenda is, and cruel. And the cruelty is built in. That is part of their MO, especially this version. It's like the sort of rawest version of their ideals. It's sort of like the lizard fantasy in the back of their brains that they've had for years, where they get to do all the terrible things that they always wanted to do, and it's not even good monetary policy, because they're not only giving money to the super rich and taking it from the least affluent, but they're also adding to the overall debt by trillions of dollars. So it doesn't even solve that problem. Sorry, I have to. Sorry, I came in closer. Had to adjust this little heater fan. It's still not warm here in Buffalo. It is still chilly. It's been a mostly kind of cool May. Now, when I say chilly, it's like 55 degrees. It was got up to 60 yesterday, but that's not really warm. I am gonna go for a bike ride today to the harbor, as I often do on Sundays in spring and summer. So I'll bundle up. I'll bundle up, and it'll be fine. It gets a little windy out there on the lake, where the trails are. So, but I like it. I love to be outside and this time of year as much as possible. And even like yesterday, I had a little extra time, and so I did some yard work, and I even painted the ceiling of the downstairs apartment. Like I my house has two apartments in it, and I live on the second floor, and I painted the porch ceiling of the other apartment, the downstairs apartment, and it was good. It was good to be outside, and once you're working, even though I was in a hoodie and sort of like work pants, you get warm, and I was listening to a lot of YouTube, a lot of different YouTubers, both political and spiritual, and just in my zone, in my happy zone. And then when I finished, I showered up and I treated myself to whiskey, and that was a pretty good day. So, speaking of YouTubers, I'm finding what is interesting in these times is more people are popping up to talk spirituality and to talk politics. And as always, you have to go with the ones that you find resonate with you. And some people obviously resonate more than others, but I'm pleased. I'm really happy to see that there are more psychics coming on that I haven't known about before, and yet also a lot of my old favorites are still on. So like lately, I've been watching. In case you want to check any of these out, you may know many of these already. Of course, I regularly watch Kim Carey and Intuitive View, and I'm a member of her channel. Some of her content is private, some's not. I check out Linda G pretty regularly. I sometimes watch Sterling, Psychic Medium. More often lately now, I watch Dave Johnson. I watch all of his videos because I find his channelings very interesting. He doesn't post super often, but I pretty much always watch him when he comes on. I have been watching Cindy with Soulprint a little more often lately. Let's see who else. There was another one I was just about to mention. Oh, and one of my new faves. Well, I've watched Tarot Mom pretty regularly. Her readings are kind of interesting because she, I think she has a background in finance, so she comes at some of the stuff from a different angle than others, and I think that's that's what I'm trying to get out of it. I'm trying to get different perspectives from different kinds of people, because people have different areas of knowledge. Oh, and like a Fefe, I watch a Fefe sometimes. I can't think of the name of her channel. A Fefe, AFEFE, I believe is how it's spelled. And she had a background in journalism, so she kind of comes at her from her own perspective and her own spin. And then one of my ones I've been enjoying a lot lately is Diane with Artsy Wisdom. Artsy Wisdom is her channel. And the reason I bring her up too is because she said something in her video today that I thought was kind of cool, and might be useful to you too. She was talking about how we can pray for a quicker end to the nonsense that's going on in the country. And I think she kind of consulted her guides to say this. You can watch her video from today and see for yourself. But she said that a prayer that you can do is you can ask Archangel Michael to wield the sword of truth to lop off the head of the beast for the greater good, for the greater higher good. And she said it's not a literal head, it's a metaphorical head. And I know sometimes like what is unsatisfying to some people about praying is like how totally pure we're supposed to be in our prayers. And obviously it's much better to throw all love at something if you can. But sometimes, because just we're human, it's hard to pray like, I mean, I do this anyway. I'll ask spirit to please, be with the world. Please help the world to be more free, more equitable, more fair, more just. General prayers. But I must admit, I'm a little attracted to, well, a lot attracted to this idea of, dear Archangel Michael, take the sword of truth and lop off the head of the beast for the greater good. So it's towards a better end. It's not a malicious thing. It's so that justice prevails. So, and sometimes I've done this visualization before, not specifically with Archangel Michael, but sometimes where I envision like I envision either myself or like an archangel or like a huge cosmic being taking this giant sword that is probably like the size of planet Earth and lighting it ablaze by touching it to the sun. So I imagine this flaming sword of divine light. And then I imagine like the sword sometimes like just cutting right through the center of the earth, like, an angel or Michael, taking that sword and cutting it slowly through the center of the earth with the purpose of burning off impurities, burning away some of that dark gank funk that is in the crevices. So it's not fire, like we're not trying to light the world on fire. It's a divine flame. It's a purifying flame. And I find that visualization kind of satisfying. And sometimes at night, if I'm praying, I will imagine like sort of like taking that sword and, like swinging it around my house, like to protect the house, like to like set up like a little wall of divine flame or light around the house to protect us at night. And I like those visualizations. Like some cultures in the past used to worship the sun as a god, which makes sense because it's the source of, it's the source that makes all life possible on this planet, in this galaxy, in this solar system, and all the suns, all the stars, in all the galaxies, and throughout the universe. Like, you have to have a star for anything to be able to grow and thrive. So it's kind of like the highest, purest form of light that we know of here. I think that's true to say that. So again, I just like Diane's visualization. Archangel Michael, please take the sword of truth and, in my version, touch it to the sun and light it on fire with divine flame and lop off the head of the beast for the greater good, for the greater common good. So, apologies to Diane. I didn't mean to I'm trying to add to her idea, not in any way appropriate her idea. So, and she's fun. I like her readings. I like her channelings. When she has discussions with historical figures, it seems like she is entering their energy, but sometimes it's their energy as they were when they were on the planet. Like it's less like she's talking to their higher self and more like she's talking to them as they were in that incarnation, or like almost like going to the past to talk to them. So she's interesting that way. Okay, let me transition to a few dreams. Coffee. Whiskey later, probably after the bike ride, but for now, coffee. She's over here napping on the couch next to me, which is pretty darn good too. Let's see. Last night's dreams, I can't quite get a grasp on yet, but I'll just briefly mention that there was some aspect of like a reunion with friends from high school, people I knew from high school. And I remember at one point this guy I knew named Gary, he like yelled out a car window to me like, "Oh man, we're getting old." And I said, "We're not old yet, but we will be," which is kind of true. I guess I'm in middle age now, and presuming that I continue to live a few more decades, then I guess I will become old. We'll see what that looks like if I get there. But I do find it funny when people my age, like I'm 55 now, people will say, "Oh, we're old," and I'll just be thinking, people older than us don't think we're old. And there's nothing wrong with being old, and hopefully you can be old and active too. My voice teacher is in her early 80s, and she's pretty active still. I mean, thank God I've been going to her for lessons for practically 20 years, and don't know what I would have done without her because she's fantastic. Some of it is, is staying active, staying engaged in life in whatever way, whatever it is that turns you on. Like for me, still working on music, writing music, being at the computer and editing music on the computer and creating songs that way is still one of the best ways for me to reconnect with kind of everything, reconnect with myself and feel connected to the greater whole and to source. And I've started performing a little more again now. I didn't have that many bookings over the winter and early spring, and now I'm getting a few more bookings. So just kind of like, appreciating and enjoying that. I performed on Friday, and I think it had been at least a month since I'd performed, and I was worried I was going to be rusty. And I was a little rusty, but it didn't matter. I still played well, so I was just happy, like, okay, I still got it. I still got it for now, which is a nice feeling. So I don't remember too much more about that dream from last night. Little bits are kind of floating around my head, but I don't want to waste a lot of time, well, yeah, of your time trying to sit here and figure it out. I'd say about a week and a half ago, I did have a dream about Felon 47 that I'm not really going to get into because I don't want to, because it wasn't a dark dream or anything. It's just, he's just so annoying to talk about in any capacity. I think what I will say, the theme of the dream, as far as I can tell, was the dream was from the perspective of someone who works for him. And I was aware in the dream that this person who worked for him knew knows exactly what he is, like knows that he is a bad apple, a bad actor, to say the least. And they were doing their job to some extent to try to like protect their family. So they were saying to someone in their family, like when that person was also around him, like don't make waves, don't make a scene with him because it won't go well. And I am doing this job. I'm doing what I need to do, even though I don't want to, because I'm also trying to protect you from him. So I guess that might be interesting. Surely, the people who work for him, some of them, I mean, some of them are pure Kool-Aid drinkers, but some of them, they know that they've tied themselves to something something rotten. Just leave it like that. So that was that dream. That's the short version. The two more interesting dreams to me in the last week or two were I had one dream that seemed to imply, and it's not the first time, and probably not the first time you've heard me talk about this, that life, our life here on Earth, is kind of a virtual reality. Like it's not the final reality. And I'll get a little coffee swig and I'll tell you about it. Oh, I just remembered one other reader I've been watching more often. Karen at Ask the Spirit Guides. She does dowsing rod readings pretty regularly. Oh, and Debbie at Freebird Spirit. How could I forget? Debbie's a sweetheart. I really, her positivity. I love to watch her readings for her energy and her positivity. And then there's also a woman whose channel is called, I think it's called Park Rose Permaculture. Park Rose Permaculture, and she does pretty much just political stuff from a very thoughtful, empathetic perspective. And she too has a presence that is kind, that makes you feel good when you're watching her. So if you're looking for new channels to check out. Okay, so here's the dream, kind of like about being in a virtual reality. I was as you may or may not know, you probably know, I'm a musician. I also work in the arts and I do marketing work. And I also do concert promotion. I have a small concert promotion business. And the concert promotion business part of my life is kind of like a one-man show. I do all the marketing for the shows. I do all the I'm the sole owner of it. I just make the decisions myself about what I'm going to promote and what I'm interested in. And sometimes, depending on the show, I might even bring some of the equipment for the bands. Like some groups require you to rent local equipment, and I have kind of a stash now of amplifiers in different brands and bass amps in different brands and a handful of different keyboards that are standard type keyboards for rentals. So there have been some shows where I'm wearing every hat I can think of, and I'm even like literally loading in equipment, like alongside the union crew, to bring in my own gear. So I kind of have put my or I have to go buy hospitality for the bands. So I go, the week of the show, and I spend hours at the grocery store buying all the things they want on their rider. So it's like doing every aspect of the job instead of delegating. So in this dream, and this is not the first time I've dreamt about this too. I dreamed that I had like rented an 18-wheeler to transport equipment. So, and I think it might have been for one of my concert events, but I'm not entirely sure. And I have had these dreams where I'm driving these 18-wheelers and I'm really high up in the saddle and looking down at the traffic and just having like this kind of funny experience of being in this enormous vehicle. Excuse me. I've never driven an 18 wheeler. I've driven some of those like 12 passenger buses or 12 passenger vans, those long vans, and those are, you really got to watch yourself in those because they are so long. So I don't know how bus drivers do it. You got to really have the right temperament for that. But in the dream, I had rented an 18 wheeler to transport some equipment. But then I found myself at this place. It seemed like someone's house, but it was like a fancy property. It was all landscaped, and they had a very wide sort of fancy driveway. It almost looked like maybe it was a ramp that went to an underground garage. You know how they have those sloped ramps, but the driveway was really, really, really wide. And in the dream, there were 5 18 wheelers right side by side next to each other in the driveway, and the driveway was wide enough and long enough to accommodate them. Now here's where it gets funky. I don't know why I wanted to do this, but I decided, oh yeah, there was for some reason, I know this doesn't make sense, but for some reason I needed to acquire more weight. I needed some scrap metal to put into my own 18 wheeler, and I don't know if it was, I don't know why I needed scrap metal, and so there were these 18 wheelers, but then there was also like maybe one of the 18 wheelers was like open, maybe the back was open, and there was it almost looked like a dumpster full of metal, and but it was about as wide as a dumpster, but only about a quarter deep, almost like a steel envelope that was filled with metal. And when I touched it, a menu popped up on it, like on almost like a computer screen menu with all these options. And I was able to run my finger down the menu, like kind of in the air or right on the surface of the container, and pick duplicate or copy. I can't remember which one it was, duplicate or copy. And when I did this, when I touched it, an exact duplicate of that dumpster full of metal formed in the air and pushed the one in front of it out of the 18-wheeler. So it's like I hit the copy button, I waited a second, and then all of a sudden it just materialized and it just went this conk. And it created an exact copy of all the metal in the container. And we're talking about something that would have to weigh hundreds or thousands of pounds. But it was as easy as just pressing a button on a pop-up menu. And I'm not sure if I realized in the dream, like, oh, like I am in a digital reality, like where you can just make copies of things, like you can alter reality inside the reality, or if I thought of that later. But then, for whatever reason, I decided, I don't know if I was fooling around or if I just thought the more the merrier, but I decided to make a copy of all 5 of the 18 wheelers that were sitting in the driveway. Okay? and I touched one of them, and I touched the copy option. But what I didn't realize is that I had hit the button twice. So what ended up happening is all 5 of the 18 wheelers like materialized like a second set in front of them, and then they just dropped into the driveway, which kind of started to crack. And then an extra set that I hadn't intended to create also materialized in the driveway and clunked and like were right up against the garage, and like the garage was dented and like right up against the edges of the driveway, so the driveway was on a slope. Like I said, it was like to an underground garage. So they cracked the stone around the edges of the driveway because they took up all the space. So now imagine that this driveway has 15 18 wheelers in it, all pressed right up against each other, crushing the driveway beneath it, cracking the driveway, the sides of the ramp downward, and just like pressing up against the house. So I was like, oh my God. And I thought, I only meant to create one copy, and now I've got all these 18 wheelers here. What the hell do I do? But there wasn't an undo button. So I was looking for an undo button on the menu, and there wasn't one. So that dream is ridiculous, right? Like, it doesn't make any sense, really. But the point that I took from it was that, because my neighbor Rose says this too sometimes, she thinks we're in a virtual reality. And I've written about it before and talked about it before. And if we really are, if like this human body that I'm in, that you're in, is just one incarnation of many, like, and that our soul resides elsewhere, and this is just a place to have experiences. Well, if that's true, then it kind of is a virtual reality no matter how you look at it, because real reality, our soul, wherever our soul exists, say it's in another dimension, let's say it's in a higher dimension, as a lot of people believe, that all of reality is layers of dimensions at different vibrational wavelengths, which really may be the case, because science is starting to point towards that too, because everything in the universe vibrates. Like all the matter in our body, even though it appears solid, all of the atoms are constantly vibrating, and they vibrate at measurable frequencies. So it could be that our ability to, it could be that this the other realm where our soul is another dimension, and it exists at a higher vibration than what we can perceive. Like that we live in this band of frequencies, in this reality. That's what we can perceive. And then some of the more psychic people, and the empaths, they can rise a little higher to perceive a little more of the next and the higher, slightly higher dimensions. And some of the angels and people on the other side that are in the higher dimension can come down to sort of meet people with psychic sensitivity in this middle space that is, a little lower for them and a little higher for us. And that's how some of the communications can go on between psychics and supernatural beings, spirits, angels, guardian angels, archangels, whatever you believe in. So that's one way of looking at it, one way things might be. So again, to my point, if my soul survives death and so does yours, then in some sense this is a virtual reality. That doesn't mean it's not real. It doesn't mean it's not, that the experiences aren't real. It doesn't mean that, this mug isn't real. But in a sense, it all kind of exists because in my belief system, there's a creator who created it. And the creator's energy might even be necessary for it to maintain its existence, as if, and I've discussed this before too, as if God is like not just the force of love, but God is like, and the creative artist who created all of this, but God is also kind of like a supercomputer, because God has so much power and energy that this reality can exist within what is God. And, people have different opinions about this, and that's fine. I don't have a definitive answer on what it is, what reality is, and that's not the point I'm trying to make. And it's fine if you disagree with me, if you think that whatever God created the universe and exists outside of it, or whether you want to believe that the universe and us and everything is all within God already. But I remember thinking again in the dream where I was duplicating, the containers of metal, and then duplicating the 18-wheelers. I was thinking these objects are so heavy in this reality, yet somehow by the push of a button on a menu, I was able to replicate them as if they were like, it was nothing to like create more of them. And the strangeness of that struck me, like, wow, if you can create, these out of thin air, then you can create everything out of thin air. Like, what's really going on here? So, be curious to hear any feedback on that if you have any. But it was interesting. The part that sticks with me is the panic that set in when I realized I had made one extra set too many of the 18-wheelers, and I couldn't do anything about it. And they were just like crushing the driveway and pressed up against the garage and cracking the garage and cracking the concrete and everything, and just thinking, oh my God, now what do I do? But that's all there was to this dream, so I guess there was nothing more to be done. And then I got one more dream for you. I don't know if you can hear the birds from here. I just fed them before I came on, because actually I had started to record this video, and then a squirrel jumped right on my screen window as soon as I started, because I hadn't put the peanuts out yet for them. So I was like, oh, I better do it or they're never going to stop. They stalk me. There was one squirrel that was jumping up on my porch door, but I don't have the screen on the door yet. I just have the, replaceable plexiglass windows. And of course the bottom of the door is, aluminum or some light metal. So I hear this banging, and I can't figure out what's happening the one day. And it was the squirrel was trying to like jump up and get my attention, because I was sitting in the chair in my recording studio, which is right adjacent to the porch door. And it was jumping up to try to get my attention, but it kept banging the bottom of the door. I was like, oh my God, they're lunatics, You create your own monsters with these things. So I gave in that day and gave it peanuts, but then another day when I heard it doing it, I didn't, because I thought I don't want to train this thing to think that it can just bang on my porch door whenever it wants peanuts. But when I popped on the screen, I figure if I'm going to try to do this video, I better take care of this one. So I took care of that one. I don't have my glasses on, so let's see. Oh, wow. I've been talking for 44 minutes already. That's crazy. So last stream, this was back in the Cosmic Variety. Probably, I don't know, maybe a week ago now. I was, when I get out there, I really get out there. So this was like a an interdimensional dream. I was not the first time I've had a dream kind of like this. I was jumping through dimensions. I had the ability to jump through dimensions and even through time. I think I could go backward and forward in time, which I've had in dreams too. And the reason I was doing this was because I was kind of on a mission. I was on a mission to find and be reunited with my wife and daughter. I don't have a wife and daughter in real life, but in the dream I did. And in the dream I can remember looking at a portrait of them too. And I had to find them. I wanted to find them, but I was being chased by interdimensional, unfriendly forces. Like I was being chased by bad guys, but cosmic bad guys, and I guess I was a cosmic good guy. And when I would hide in a space, when I would travel to another space or hide in a space, I could tell that the spaces were sort of like constructed, like they weren't entirely real. Like they were just like, I don't know if they were mental constructs. It's hard to explain. But I remember in one part I had made my way, I'd slipped through a dimension, and I was hiding in this room that had a lot of machinery in it. Like, I don't know, almost looked like what you might find in a spaceship or something, crazy advanced machines everywhere. And I was hiding behind this one computer, this one tall computer. And these beings, these not very nice beings who were chasing me were like shooting at me, but they were shooting energy at me. And when the energy would hit objects in the room, it would like disrupt the object, and I guess kind of like make the object vaporize or disappear or go through the object. So there was this realization that nothing was really entirely solid, and that this was really just a battle of energies. They were the disruptors, and I was trying to carry out my goals or my mission, to be reunited with my family. And so as they were shooting at me, it would disrupt, and then even where I was hiding behind, I think they were shooting blindly, but they were like kind of like standing on maybe like a staircase at the back of the room and shooting down. And as I crouched, I could see like the machine that I was hiding behind, like disrupt and disappear, and then they kind of could see where I was. But as soon as they knew where I was able to boop. I just slipped right out into another dimension. I was gone. It was easy. And I had the sense in the dream that in some ways I was indestructible. Like, let's say I was in spirit form, like I was my soul. I had this sense that I really couldn't be harmed. And I think it was more, what they were doing was more like harassment than trying to like kill me. They were just trying to make things difficult for me. And I think we're seeing a lot of that energy in the world right now. A lot of what the people in 47's administration, what they're doing is they're trying to wear down people who oppose them by means of harassment, different forms of harassment. Whether it's, bringing a court case against someone, or messing with someone's finances, or, God forbid, like arresting someone, like the way they arrested that immigration judge, which was troubling. And then I literally read this morning before I came on that they arrested someone in Representative Jerry Nadler's office because they claimed that his office was harboring someone who had engaged in violent protest or something like this. I have to reread the story again, but that would represent an escalation if that's where they're going with this, that they're trying to that they're gonna try to arrest, American citizens for tiny infractions or even made up infractions, and because they're trying to dishearten people and they're trying to intimidate people and they're trying to get people to be afraid and stay afraid and give up and not resist because it makes it easier for them to control. But all of history has shown us that you can't get by on appeasement. That if you don't actively resist, you get rolled over. It doesn't matter. Sooner or later, you have to draw lines and you have to choose to, do what's right in order to. You have to take a stand against a bully. You have to take a stand. However, that within legal means, of course. And peaceful protest has always been the most effective form of resistance, and that's that's probably we're headed for a lot more protests, and hopefully people will be brave to do that, be brave enough to do that and to participate en masse, and that will be a way we can push it back. So the dream kind of had aspects of that because it was sort of like being harassed. But there was another part that I thought was interesting that I wanted to share. There was a part where, as I continued to try to evade them, I found myself in deep black space. I don't know if I was in a spacesuit or if I even needed one, but I was floating in space, and there was another person there floating in space, kind of far from me, maybe about 100 feet away, just floating in the air, and they were in a spacesuit. And I think they were showing me how to use this huge machine that existed there. The machine, I wish that person would stop beeping outside. The machine was like silver, and it was kind of shaped it was kind of a unusual sort of blobby kind of shape. I don't know, I guess kind of shaped like this. It's hard to describe. Almost not like a snail shell. I don't know, maybe like a snail shell, somewhat, but solid metal. And it did have buttons and a display on it. And what the machine could do, I was aware that it could do two things. Well, I think. But the one thing, it seemed to be able to create what do you call it? Wormholes or black holes. When you activated the machine, it shot into deep space, and it opened up a wormhole. And wormholes are theoretical tunnels to travel from one part of a galaxy to another, and they may be real. I've heard Sterling, psychic medium in particular, say that wormholes are used by alien civilizations to travel from one galaxy to a distant galaxy. Basically, the wormhole cuts through space in a way that it becomes a shortcut. So instead of having to travel 1,000 light years away and having it take, I don't know, a year or however fast spaceships travel, well, you drive in, you fly into the wormhole and you come out the other side instantly, instead, because it's a tunnel. And so in the dream, hit the machine, it shot this beam into space, and then the tunnel formed. And when the tunnel formed, whoop, boom, I went right through it. And that was another way of escaping from my pursuers. But after I left the last location where I had been hiding, it turned out that that location was like kind of my home base. So then it was like I was watching the rest of this dream like a movie, because I had already escaped, but I could see that they were going through all my things. They were going through all my stuff and reading like my materials. They were trying to figure out what I was doing and why I was running. And I think they came across the photograph of my wife and my child, my daughter, in the dream. And so they realized that that's what I was trying to do. That's who I was trying to find. And so unfortunately, in having to abandon that location, I had given them access to my info and given them clues on my next destination. But at the same time, as I said, in the dream, I just knew that I couldn't be destroyed. I was indestructible. So, but it was just like, it was harassment. They were just harassing me. So maybe that's a metaphor for the times we're in. We just have to do what we have to do in order to get through and maintain our lives through these challenges. I would really like to believe what both Kim Carey and Dave Johnson have said, which is that there is some kind of major event this summer that we can't foresee that is going to be a real kind of game changer for the good. That something in the grand plan of the administration is going to be disrupted in a major way this summer, or some kind of almost like global scale event. Dave alluded to something like a 9/11, like a shocker that affects the whole world and makes the whole world reflect on where things are going. I hope it's not an event that is as destructive as that, but who knows? And who knows in general, because the psychics get some things right and they get some things wrong. Certainly, a lot of them mispredicted the election because they thought that Harris would win, but yet I'm not really convinced that Harris didn't win. I think she won. Whether that's provable, I don't know. Or if it is provable, will we ever know? Or will we know in our lifetimes? Hard to say. But if that evidence is out there, it sure would be great if it could come out. It would probably have to come out via some foreign newspaper, because I think the American newspapers would be too scared to cover that right now. So we'll see if the summer brings some major change. I have no doubt that no matter what happens, the world will breathe a big sigh of relief when 47 is off the world stage, and so is Vladimir. Those two somehow, they are really connected energetically. And it's not that them going away would solve all the problems. It wouldn't. But there's something so funky, in a bad way, about their energy. There's something so fundamentally funky and bad about their energy. It's like if they just weren't here, things would even feel different. I just know it. I just feel it. And yeah, there'd be other lackeys to take up their slack. The vice president is almost definitely a sociopath, but maybe not as charismatic a figure And so he might be more, I'm not going to say more easily resisted, but he could possibly be defeated in different ways that the current president seems impervious to because of his unending lies. So let's hope for the game changer this summer, I guess. I'm gonna wrap this up. Thanks so much for listening. Shay's listening to me too now, and the birds. It's getting kind of dim out there. It's not supposed to rain. I'm still going biking. I don't care, cause I want to. It'll make me feel good. I'll have a little more coffee first. So I hope that you and yours are doing well. I hope you're able to kind of maintain your equilibrium. You're probably like me and going up and down every day. I have found the psychics and some of the political channels very comforting just to know that other people are feeling and thinking the same thing. I watch The Bulwark all the time on YouTube. I really like them. There's others too that are really good. Of course, Brian Tyler Cohen is always good. Glenn, what's his name? Justice Matters. Glenn, you know who I'm talking about? Can't think of his last name. And even others, I'm discovering more. I think Sam Whitmer, is he another guy? A younger guy who's doing politics now and doing good coverage. And then, you can only watch so much of that. And then you got to back off from that too. But to stay informed, I feel it's more informative than the regular news most of the time. So be well, take care. Again, I'd love to hear your comments on my thoughts, ramblings, and dreams. And if I have something new good to share, I'll be back. Maybe I'll do a book reading soon. I'm very overdue. So I'll put that on my list. Okay, take care, be well, stay safe.